My name is Noah, and this is my Reflective on Essay podcast.
And my name is Mary. I'm Noah's partner.
So today we're going to be talking about what we've been learning in class recently, and I wanted to first ask you a question about what you know about possibly, let's start with recently our Asian discussion, so what you know about Asians and their representations in specifically music and film.
Yeah, so I'm taking a class on representation in the 1920s. So one of the things we've been covering right now is Asian representation in media. And I'm really familiar with narratives about exoticism and fetishization and hypersexualization in specific regards to Asian women. And at the same time, there's a dichotomy of feminization and towards Asian men at the same time. And I think it's this really kind of terrible like push and pull dynamic that we have that's kind of orchestrated by like white supremacist structures to it's like further colonization of these East Asian identities when white audiences and white viewpoints come in and they further kind of appropriate and make a narrative for an identity like an Asian American woman centered around what they believe they should be in or what they find appealing or attractive about that identity.
I know we talked about like globalization. So one big thing, especially listening to music and seeing films that have Asian women in them, is that they're exotic because people in the West don't know what life is like in Eastern countries, Eastern Asian countries, the music representation of them. We don't see it too often because of how rough things have been for Asian women. And we can see that translating across indigenous cultures, stuff that happens in the West, our own indigenous tribes that get snuffed out, and we can appreciate possibly by looking at their music. So like indigenous cultures, black cultures. I mean, we talked about Lizzo in class and how great she is and how she shows how beautiful black culture is and how important it is to influence American culture. All of these have influenced American culture themselves.
Yeah. Something I'm really interested in with like regards to the subjugation of like woman and like a female identity is how it is so focused around our self-image. Like all those kind of derogatory depictions we see are like mainly based on imagery. Like with Asian women, it is hypersexuality and fetishization. With black women, it's like demonization of their like natural facial features. For indigenous women, it is like for lack of a better word, like Indian princess like narrative. Like it is very focused on our imagery and our presentation, especially since that like, and I think it's interesting because for all women it's like commodified our self representation and our imagery, and when in media, like that is the first thing that is manipulated. It's our it's woman's image.
Yeah. And one thing I'm glad about is trying to just kind of off-put the idea. So recently, cultures have been showing their identities, and more so, white dominant cultures have been accepting. We've noticed that we've been more accepting of people who are undermined in different communities, where we can start seeing Asian American women producing their own films and seeing the difference about how Asian American make their own media and how different that was when a white man or any sort of white person decides to make a film about Asian women or about black women, especially back when in big Walt Disney times we saw lots of appropriation, and recently we've had Disney films that are more accepting, especially recent Turning Red. It's very broad. Everybody is different. Even the animation style, you can tell, is more accepting of people.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting case, especially since it's Asian. The writer is Asian Canadian, and it is fully like led by her team. The voice actors are Asian Americans and Asian Canadians, and I think moving forward, like holding space for subjugated peoples, that's the most important thing we have to do if we want to like construct narratives, imagery, music, film that is I don't want to say sensitive. I want to say like uplifting
Yeah.
and like truly sees like these individual like experiences, because when white creators kind of put themselves in those spaces, like it's you can't replicate that like cultural environment that has produced that like understanding of the world. You can only learn from it. So like giving space for these viewpoints to create their own narrative is extremely important if you want to have accurate, thoughtful, and emotionally like relevant media.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's good. We've covered it. I appreciate you talking about this with me, and thank you for your time.
Mm-hmm.